operating worldwide. I'm the director of the Berlin office. And beside me is Mark Tamschick, founder and director of Tamschick Media and Space, also located in Berlin. Mark is a film producer, an interactive producer. And we want to share with you if we can, look before. I want to share with you a project that we have in the works. It's really a work in progress. It's a project that we're doing for the Norsk Teknisk Museum in Oslo. Yes. Let's see how busy and messy my desktop is. And it's a project which is not open yet. It's really very much in progress, and so what we're showing you are a set of ideas that we initially proposed and that we've developed with the staff of the museum. Okay. The title is Ting, Technology, Democracy. The Norsk Teknisk Museum came to us initially with an idea to celebrate their jubileum, their 100th anniversary next year. They wanted to create a special jubileum exhibition. It happens next year, it happens to also be the 200th anniversary of the Norwegian Constitution. So their idea was to create an exhibition that explores a special relationship between technology and democracy. And that's pretty much all they gave us, plus a space and their collection. They also did give us this quote, which we found really intriguing, a bit ambiguous, but it put forth the question, where is technology's place in the evolution of democratic values and ideas? What is technology's relationship to society and to history? And we found that an absolutely fascinating question, and based our proposal on that. We actually said at first, we want to put technology on trial. Our concept was to take 100 objects from their collection and put them on trial. And they said, well, no, let's put them to the Ting. We didn't know what a Ting was. It doesn't exist in America, it doesn't exist in Germany, but it exists very strongly in the Norwegian conscience. The Ting is an ancient form of gathering and discussing ideas, putting ideas on a table, valuing them and deciding upon them. And this is an ancient Ting in Norway, but of course the state legislature is also called a Ting. So this form exists even today in modern government. And a Ting has its roots in the idea of an object or an idea, also in German. Ding is the same. So there are some interesting deep connections there. Well, what does it mean to put an object to a Ting or a technology? A technology could be everything from an oil rig. And as you know, Norwegian economy is based on oil resources. We could talk about how the standard of living in Norway since the 70s has just achieved a remarkable level because of the wealth of nature and the resources that oil provides to society to provide a higher standard of living. But one could also talk about a marine life catastrophe and the concerns for the environment. One could critique an oil rig in a very other way. Or one could simply admire it as a fantastic achievement, a city on the sea, a place where people work and go about their daily lives. Another object we proposed was a Hollerith census tabulator from the United States, 1890. It took the United States 10 years to figure out how many people are living in the country in the 19th century, and this tabulator finally enabled the government to count every vote, to see the population as a data set. And that, of course, is how our elections are run today. Polling and gathering of data about opinion is influencing in real time the elections. Here it took 7 years to calculate the population. But of course, there's a downside to this. Big Brother is watching you. What is this data used for, really? How much do we really want everyone to know about us? And But of course, in the end, it ensures a kind of democratic process because every vote is counted. If we just look at a more recent technology, the iPhone or any smartphone, bringing together multiple previous technologies into one form. It's a mobile newsroom. We said very early that perhaps the Arab Spring would not have started without the use of mobile media, the ability to capture events, broadcast them from an on-the-ground perspective and with a global reach. That's an incredibly powerful thing for democracy. It's also, of course, a personal concierge. It can help you organize your life, but one might also say it's a distraction device. It's taking time away from other things which are important to our health and well-being. So these are the kind of discussions one could have in the Ting. And we deliberately chose a very low-tech way to explore this idea in the form of a storyboard. You enter the museum from a lobby, there's a stair which leads you up to the main exhibition hall, and you encounter an area, an introductory area which features a clock. At this time we called it a trial still, now it's a Ting, but you could see in a sequence of programs that occur on the floor of the exhibition, a sequence of Tings, different objects from the museum are discussed. This is a very participatory exhibition, one that involves the visitor very intensely. Our first idea was that people gather an avatar, a kind of an object to represent their vote. And here we have a row of 3D printers where people could gather a 3D printed representation of the object that they're tinging. You then take that object and you enter into the exhibition between these intro walls. And then there's a space which interprets a set of objects put out on display from a curatorial perspective as to their meaning and significance in history, and also simply as technological artifacts. The visitor then moves into the Ting itself, which is really the main event. It's a gathering space, it's a social space, it's organized around a table, it has a set of benches and iPads, and it's a facilitated talk about a particular object.
Yes, and the most incredible thing of this exhibition is that we are not exhibiting the objects as a primary thing, but we are exhibiting something that is so virtual as a discussion can be. So what we are exhibiting actually is a kind of tool with which the spectator, the visitor, are invited to engage into a discussion. So our main task as exhibition designers is to create this kind of place, to create it with the use of modern technology, of course, but it's not the technology that is in the foreground, but the narration, the narrative. So you can imagine all the things that Tim was just introducing you, they are so endless. There is such a big possibility of discussion potential behind it. So how could we trigger that? And we imagine this strong interactive table in the foreground, and our idea is that people gather around this table, and through the use of moderators or through the use of narratives that we place on the so-called shelf that is in the background, in which the 100 objects are on display. We can then introduce each and every topic through the use of media, through a narrative, a kind of trailer, a kind of introduction into the theme, and then by using several questions which are curated by the museum, we are then able to create a discussion forum and to trigger the discussion potential between the people that are standing there. So the exhibition is not so much, or it's not at all about the technology itself, it's more about what technology triggers in our heads and how to use it, and of course to trigger the discussion potential between the people.
What you're seeing are discussion threads people can input while on the exhibit floor, but we're also creating a web-based component so that while Tings are in progress, people across Norway, or really worldwide, can participate via online. And I think that's very important because it's the National Museum of Technology in Oslo. Norway is a big place, and not every school group can make the trip. So this is very much a proactive use of web media to bring in the discussion, the ideas, the conversations of people outside. So it's a social space, it's a comfortable space, it's not a place full of didactic text panels and information to absorb. It's really a place of conversation, which presents some really interesting challenges for us as a designer, because in a way the content is evolving as we go. We set a stage, we create an infrastructure, we create a platform for this to happen, and in a sense what we're hoping to enact is democracy itself, is the intense conversation around particular topics that affect us all.
And I think also the interesting part is not only that the people will then, through use of maybe the avatars, which is now has completely changed to something very simple, but also through the face-to-face conversation on a round table where you suddenly start to discuss, and I see you doing something else than you are doing, and suddenly we are seeing each other and we can get engaged into the discussion very easily. So our aim is not to create complex, intelligent hardware or software for this to happen, but more or less, as this image also suggests, to open up a kind of new landscape to make visible how people decide, how people vote, how people engage in the discussion, and to create a kind of virtual world in which those discussions are being somehow displayed like a landscape of opinions.
So in a more concrete way, what it is a series of questions that are asked. Visitors are given a chance to say yes, no, or maybe, or undecided, and place their avatar on this table. A statistical data is generated by that, and this creates a landscape. And it's an iterative process which is looping through several sequences of questions which build upon each other and then create a final result.
But the exhibition has also this other side. We have kind of two states inside of the exhibition. One is maybe half an hour, people can explore the objects by using a tablet. And actually, by flipping through the tablet, they can see the objects. When they touch them, they are highlighted in the shelf and become visible, because the shelf has this kind of double membrane. It's a semi-transparent projection screen, and when there is light being put behind, we can actually see the objects on display. So it's a very beautiful way how to actually discover the objects and how to get the secondary information that is laying behind the objects.
Here you see in one mode the entire collection of 100 objects as a sort of celebratory gesture of the museum's, demonstrating the depth of the museum's collection, all in one backlit presentation. And this is actually under construction now. These are very early sketches, but here's the ground plan. You come up the stairs, you collect an avatar, you come through what we call the Bildung area, which is a kind of landscape of exhibition pieces discussing 4 particular objects. Then you come into the Ting and the giant shelf, which is really a kind of a panorama of the museum's collection. Just lastly, we want to show you some renderings. We don't have photographs of the physical installation yet, though we've been building some prototypes, but this is more or less what it could look like. There's an intro area with a set of provocative quotes leading you in. In a way, there's a metaphor here about unpacking, and the space itself unpacks architecturally. You come in, you see this wall of quotes. As you move past, it begins to open up and reveal this landscape inside. You pick up your avatar, which at this point is a wooden block, which you stamp with the icon of the Ting object. And then you come into the Bildung area, which is more of a traditional exhibition layer with text and graphics talking about a set of specific objects. And then you enter the Ting. And this is, as Mark described, this wall of objects on a giant shelf, 5 meters high, with a scrim over it. And onto the scrim, we're projecting a media program which is triggered by the activity on the table in front. And these iPad stations back here, probably not iPads, but Androids or something else, are where visitors on the floor can enter their text threads. And what's generated in the end, this is just an early visualization, but is this landscape, which is created through the iterative sort of aggregate input of visitors, and it's always changing, it's transforming, and one can't know what will happen in the 18-month lifespan of the exhibition. But it's a fantastic stage for these sort of social engagements and participatory experiences to happen.
And the biggest task, I think, will be to actually create the narratives that can involve the spectators into this interaction. And that's where we are actually working on with the museum, with a lot of people from their staff, to define the themes, to define how to create such a kind of way to get involved into the discussion. That's the most, I think, mesmerizing part of the exhibition.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.